One thing with two parts. Number one, I think the Goldstone report again testifies to the fact that we have to focus on a political agenda on which a consensus exists. The agenda that Goldstone sets out in his report, and which has been set out by the International Court of Justice, and an agenda that's been set out by the United Nations General Assembly and other institutions. The agenda of human rights, the agenda of ending the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. That I think we have to focus on that agenda because it's where Israel is weakest and where the prospects for achieving something are strongest. And the second thing I think we should learn from the Goldstone, the resonances of the Goldstone report, is that we shouldn't squander time, precious time, and precious energy on sterile debates. Debates which might be suitable for Starbucks, but they have no bearing whatsoever on the real world. And that we should, in my opinion, do our best to free ourselves of slogans, of idle dreams, and also of ideological litmus tests. A large number of people seem to think that whether or not person X or person Y is a Zionist or an anti-Zionist or a non-Zionist or a post-Zionist, that this is somehow an important litmus test to pass. And I think one of the lessons to be learned from the Goldstone report is that it's just totally irrelevant. It's beside the point. If you're going to use a litmus test like, are you now or have you ever been a Zionist? Well, where does that leave Goldstone? He says he is one. Does that mean we have to drum him out of the movement, burn him in effigy? Doesn't seem to me to make any sense to use those sorts of tests to decide who is and who isn't a potential ally. The sensible thing, it seems to me, is to focus on an agenda which has a broad consensus in the international community, and then to follow the strategy of people like Mahatma Gandhi, who used to say that my aim is not to change public opinion. My aim is to get people to act on what they already know is wrong. And what we have to do is seize on that consensus that already exists, to seize on the consensus that includes eminently mainstream people like Richard Goldstone. He's a mainstream, traditional, conservative, liberal. Where both terms are accurate, a conservative liberal. To seize on people like that in order to achieve our goal. And I think if we pursue that strategy, the prospects are quite good. If you were to ask me now what I wish would happen, I think I know it's not going to happen, but if the Palestinians were smart and they had the capacity now, they would take the Goldstone report, they would ask the General Assembly to refer it to the International Court of Justice. Now, the Goldstone report said that the blockade of Gaza is a possible crime against humanity. If they refer it to the ICJ, it's inconceivable that the ICJ would come back with any other opinion except that the blockade is illegal. And then the Palestinians would have two huge victories. They would have the illegality of the wall in the West Bank and the illegality of the blockade in Gaza. And that would be the foundation for a massive movement of civil disobedience, which would join the West Bank and Gaza. A movement in the West Bank to dismantle the wall, and a movement in Gaza to break the blockade. And between them, with the backing of the ICJ, and they would have to get the backing of the EU on both of those counts, I think Israel would be very isolated, and those would be achievable goals. That's where I would, if I were in a position, that's what I would be supporting. But of course it's not happening because, again, the whole talk is shifting to this nonsense about the peace process. Okay, that's it.